Imagine this. You're walking into the OR and you have this large knot of tension in your stomach because you just got into an argument with your manager. Or maybe you just found out that half your territory was taken from you. Or you didn't make as much money as you thought you were going to make, and you literally are super upset about it at this point. And you want to take your pride in with you when you walk into that OR.
Well, today we're talking about something that every rep has felt, but not every rep knows how to handle. How to leave the drama at the door and show up in the OR like a true professional.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Secrets in Medical Device Sales, brought to you by the Girls of Grit. Today, we are discussing something that I think probably happens more often than not. What do you think, Cindy?
I think you're spot on for that because it's amazing that every day we talk about our daily job. We talk about going in and you're thinking of your procedure, you're thinking of your product, but every day we're human and we're bringing ourselves in there too.
Yeah.
And so today's discussion is really about when you bring yourself along with work. And sometimes it doesn't compartmentalize as easily as we want it to.
That's a great way of saying that. You're so right. I mean, we're human, just like you said, we all make mistakes. I've definitely allowed this one to happen, and not necessarily with another person in the room, but that's kind of what we're also talking about today. So, this is really, what are we talking about? We're talking about that contention that can play a part of any business, I think, anywhere, right? It's where you and your colleague may have gotten into a harsh argument over something, and one person is trying to up the other one or prove their point is right. Or maybe it was you and your manager and you guys were arguing over something, or even to the degree of you just got your territory cut. And a couple of your accounts were given to a new person that just came on, and you've been working for 5 years on these accounts. You have all the business in these accounts, but your manager thinks it's okay to give those accounts to the new person. And you're pissed off. Let's be honest. You are pissed. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. You're walking to the OR and by gone it, you're pissed. And we really need to talk about this today because it is so important that you guys realize you cannot allow that to play into when you go to the OR. It's just not acceptable.
And everything Lisa just mentioned, resentment, contention, frustration, all of those things are not allowed to be part of your outfit that day. So can't wear them, can't bring them, no accessories. They are unwelcome. So I think it's so important to discuss this because it happens without us seeing it. So our goal of today is for you to be aware and for you to see how easily those little buggers, those little resentment, contention, frustration can leech on and tag in with you, and they're not allowed.
Yeah.
And it can hurt your business, it can hurt your reputation, and it can also hurt your customer. And that is the last person you ever want to feel any negative feelings that you just brought in because you're having a difficult time separating it, or you didn't even realize that you're bringing it in with you.
So, let's be honest, Cindy, medical devices, I got into it because it's a pressure cooker, right? A lot of people don't do well in these situations, but people like you and I actually enjoy them. So it is a pressure cooker. The stakes are high. I remember working for a company, and it was a brand new company startup, and they were basically like, look, you got 6 months. You got 6 months to prove yourself. And if you can't do it, you're out, you're fired. There are jobs out there that are easier than this. And, hey, sometimes they even welcome a little bit of the wah, bringing in your other feelings. But in this scenario, in the medical device industry, you absolutely have to leave all that behind. But it definitely breeds this. Reps are competitive with other reps. Managers are competitive with other managers. Companies are competitive with other companies. And you feel that every single day. And there's nothing wrong with healthy competition. But when it becomes detrimental to your customers, to your patients, and obviously to your sales, that's what we're talking about today.
And you bring up a good point, and that is that sales in the OR is a different situation. I think in all fairness, that's kind of the height, but this can also apply to a high pressure meeting you're going into. But When I think of the OR and set that aside, I think what is so different is you're walking into a complete, think of it like an orchestra, and everybody has a role, and the surgeon is the conductor. Okay. All you need to do is follow the music. You're to follow along, make sure things go well. So I think we can begin with starting to think about once you enter that orchestra, that sacred place, okay, symbolizing as you walk through that door, everything else is left behind. We've kind of said that before, but I think that for visualization purposes, as you're driving through the car and listening to this, we're going to talk about when you're outside of the room, all these things happening, how we walk through that doorway, how we enter into the OR, and how it changed things, because your job as a sales rep in the OR is not just to know your product. It's truly, truly building that trust. They can like you, but they have to trust you. Now, that doubles when there's two of you in there. Sometimes there's three. Sometimes you're in there with a trainee. Sometimes you're in there with, maybe you're a rep in a clinical. Maybe it's two clinicals, two reps. But anytime there's more than one person, you can have a little bit of conflict, a little bit of tension, but nobody can know that outside of your team together. And it has to be solved before you enter that room.
All right, Cindy. So, you know me, I always have stories. And when we started talking about this topic, it reminded me of a situation that happened a little while back. I don't know, a couple years back or whatever, but it sticks out in my mind, and I'll tell you why. So, it's 6:30 in the morning. I'm driving into the OR and an email comes across my phone, which I know I'm not supposed to be checking my phone while I drive, but let's be honest here. I do it all the time. So I check the email. And I'm friggin' pissed. I am mad about what that email said in it. And I'm so mad that I fire a text off.
Please tell me you didn't go off the road.
I didn't. I was pissed. And so I fire off a message. Now, mind you, I am racing to the hospital. I have to be there by 7:15 to get into the OR, get my products in, make sure the staff knows what they're doing, all the things, right? All the things that we normally do every day. And now I'm mad. Now I'm like really pissed off. And it has to do with my business. And so now that is playing into my brain along with driving down the road, pulling into the hospital, trying to get in my head what all I need, but I'm mad. So I fire off a text to this person and I'm like, let's just see what they say. So I pull into the OR or the hospital. I get all my product out and I grab everything that I think I need. Okay. And now I'm mad and I'm walking in a huff and I'm just really pissed off. And I walk into the OR and I smile and I'm nice. And I'm very aware that I do not need to allow this to come into my brain to cloud it in any way, shape, or form. And I get into the OR and we're going through the case and the doctor's like, okay, patient's already here, already asleep. Let's get rolling. I forgot something in my car. I forgot something really important in my car that I needed for the case that was going on right then. And she's like, all right, Lisa, go ahead and bring in everything. We'll get started next 5-10 minutes, whatever. And what do? What do I have to do now?
Go all the way back to your car?
To the friggin'... Now I'm really pissed, by the way. Now I'm in lead. It's hot. I'm in my scrubs. I don't think rep scrubs did not come out yet. It doesn't matter. I was so friggin' hot. I run all the way to my car. I get what I actually forgot to bring in because I was so pissed that I now am running back to the OR. I am now covered in sweat. I have what I need, which is great, but I'm flustered and I'm hot. And the surgeon now sees me hot and she's like, you cool? And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm good. I tell her, yes, I'm great. Everybody's, but inside now I'm really pissed. And I'm thinking to myself, I cannot believe I did that. I cannot believe that I allowed myself to forget. I never forget, but I forgot. And then I realized it was because I was so mad. It was because I was distracted. And, that story could go so many different ways, Cindy. But the point I'm trying to make is we have to learn how to keep our emotions in check, our brains on the right wavelength, and to check it, whether it's at the OR door or even when you're pulling into the parking lot, because you can absolutely screw things up. And this is not the place to do it. The medical device industry isn't. You have patients on the table and you have surgeons that are counting on you. They expect the cases to go perfectly and they don't need to hear about your problems, and those don't need to come in.
That story is so spot on. And I bet everybody listening can relate to that because we've all done almost the same thing in different ways. I mean, that is so relatable. And I'm even feeling your stress listening to you. So I think it's a perfect time to talk
Take a sip of
about
coffee.
how, like, I know, right? Take a sip of coffee, right? Just jack up caffeine and make you more wired, right? I'm going to get you some chamomile tea and some
Oh my God,
classical
no.
music. Just kidding. Okay, so our secret when we're talking about the contention, whether you're bringing it in, whether it's a contention with a coworker that you're there together, the secret to undoing all of this contention is composure. And so composure meaning emotional self-control. So I want you to hear these words. In a room where lives are on the line, composure is louder than conflict. So the conflict that Lisa felt and had in the car when she thankfully did not crash texting and driving, but they asked, "Are you okay?" They sensed she wasn't perfect, but she recomposed herself. She might have been a little sweaty, but she composed herself. So did Lisa maybe be a little bit delayed in missing something she needed for the case? The answer is yes. But the good news is a high performing rep caught it in time. Before she actually entered into that room, she was able to compose herself. She was able to be calm, focus on what she needs to do. It's not easy. It's kind of putting all that pride aside and focusing on the moment, being calm, and knowing that your presence in the room is something that everybody can sense. Okay. So if you're upset, people sense it. You're in that room for a reason because you have a specific role. So if your presence is calming, then it helps to calm the rest of the room. And that's the power you bring, not your pride in winning over maybe a coworker that made you mad or trying to fix something that was out of your control at the minute. It's your composure that brings that presence to be where it needs to be for you to do the exact job you were hired to do in a good way so that guess what? You get to come back and do it again.
Yeah, you're right. Composure is everything. And you are so right, Cindy. These people feel how you're feeling. We've talked about this before, about different things and different scenarios. But the bottom line is that they're expecting you to be just like that room, sterile, on top of things, and always composed, somewhat not relaxed, because that's not the right word, but just really mentally prepared for anything. Because at some point they're going to need you. And you know what's interesting, Cindy?
What's that?
Is that what I found is when I'm not composed or I've allowed things to play into me and into my brain, that's when things go bad. That's usually when things go bad in the OR. And now you're like scrambling and you can't get your brain to think about things the correct way and you look like an idiot. And then they're like, "What's wrong with you?" And the last thing you ever want is a customer to be like, "I never want that person to come back in my room." Even if the case goes technically well, which they should go technically well. And sometimes they don't, and you help them get through it. But the point I'm trying to make is even if the case goes technically well, if they have felt anything from you other than the fact that you have been composed that entire time, they may not want you to come back, even if you had a great case. It doesn't actually matter at that point because guess what? They probably can have a great case with another rep. So it is so important to use what you were saying about the OR being the filter, the doorway walking into the OR. It's got to be the filter. You have to keep your composure, even if all hell is breaking loose. It's gotten to a point sometimes, Cindy, where I leave my phone in the control room because I don't want my phone going off. Now, I usually always have it on silent, but there are certain people that have emergency bypass on my phone. I don't have that on me anymore. I have a phone, I have a watch. It doesn't make any noise. And if I have an emergency coming through, I'll see it on my watch. But you know what? You've got to be completely on task when you walk in that OR.
You're so right. I think people don't realize, and I'm going to use this in like money terms, the cost of bringing that extra baggage, that extra accessory, resentment, contention, frustration, the cost of bringing that into the OR is probably more, it could cost your whole business. There's not a dollar form that you could put into that. And I want to take this a step further. A couple of years ago, I remember a situation where, those last minute scrambles and people are switched, who's covering what and what's doing what. And then there's 2 of you. Okay, so I think it's important that I want to set a quick example that sometimes when there's 2 people, somebody always has to take the lead. Somebody always has to be, did you check the box? oh, well, she's going to be there, he's going to be there, he's doing that, she's doing that. And then things slip because you're thinking somebody else did. Then you get there and you're mad at the other person. Or you think that person should have done something right. Or maybe you didn't like something that person said because you're mad at them. Well, let me just tell you something, and this is very important that everybody listens to this. Regardless of what issue you had with somebody maybe that should have brought extra something and didn't, all of that needs to be handled outside the room, because when you cross that threshold and you're in that OR, that person you're working with is your best friend, is the most, you idolize that person, you support that person, even if inside you're cringing because you're so mad at them, but you have to have a unified front. This is where composure comes in. Right now, you choose, the two of you in outside decide who's leading, who's taking the lead on this. Somebody's first, the other person takes a more secondary role, supports everything, eyes on everything, pick up something they don't miss, and then you can deal with your problems later. But contention among two people is so well known that I remember this doctor, like the case went perfect. There was a question at one point, and the person who forgot something made a comment, and the other person just was sticking it to him. Well, that doctor was so upset. Whoa, what's going on with you guys? Like, can I even trust what you're saying here? Because he felt that they were mad at each other. It's like if you're around somebody and a married couple is fighting, it makes you uncomfortable. You're out to dinner, you're like, ooh, I don't want to be part of this. So, you feel that, right?
Yeah.
So in an OR, your doctor feels if two coworkers are not getting along.
Yeah.
And it's not about the result. People don't remember what was said in the OR. Your doctors will remember how they feel. And believe me, you want them to feel good, right?
Yes. I love that. And you were making me think of so many things. I think so. Okay. So let's like wrap this all pretty bow. So how do we get there, right? How do we get to that ultimate composure? Because you and I can talk about this all day long. And I can tell you that 20 something years ago, I probably wasn't as composed as I am today. And I had to learn the hard way of looking like a jerk in the OR, of, not getting cases, of people telling me later, oh, well, I felt that bad energy. So let's just give it all away and tell people, here are some things that you guys can take home. So one of the very first things is you need to learn how to do your own pre-OR reset. For me, let's just take my example of the email, text message, me being pissed. So me pulling into the garage, recognizing that I'm mad, that needs to be my pre-OR reset. I need to be parking my car and saying, okay, turn off the ignition, turn off all the bad feelings. We now need to go into business mode, medical mode, case planning mode. These are the things I need. Orthopedics, where are my trays at? I need to locate everything I need for this surgery. And you run through the surgery in your head. You think about the physicians, you think about the patient, you think about whatever it is, whatever you make that for your pre-OR reset, and you do it every single time. And sometimes if you had a perfect morning, maybe it takes 2 seconds. Other mornings, it probably wasn't perfect. Somebody may have cut you off in traffic. You may have spilled coffee down your pants. You may have to pee so bad you can't think straight. I do that.
Oh, yes, guilty.
You still have to have the pre-OR reset. Just do it, because it will reset your brain. Now, all of a sudden, you're functioning at a higher level and you walk into the OR in a better place.
Great way to build on your reset is having the door frame as a filter. Like that, what tool can you do? Know that you can't cross that threshold until you've done exactly what Lisa just said, that mental reset. And how do you do that? That's individual. Maybe you breathe, ground, focus, visualize the case that you've gone through. Maybe there's a plan that you can go through, maybe discuss with a doctor, a fellow, just really just start to rehearse. And that door frame is your curtain before the show. You don't enter onto stage until you're ready. It is a mental checkpoint. That's where you breathe. And sometimes it's a little bit of just mental mantra. You tell yourself, whatever I'm feeling is back there. I'm going in, and now I'm part of this team. Even saying words like that to yourself can really, really help. Lisa and I talked in an episode a long time ago when we first started about your posture. And what's funny? That if you physically step into the position that you want to be seen as, it does help you reset. So just stand up straight, think about your posture, take a deep breath, and that energy shift will pull you into a good state when you're in the OR.
I had forgotten all about that episode. Oh my gosh, you're right. And I'm like sitting up as you said
I
that.
did the same thing. How
But you're
many
so
people use
right.
that street?
You're so right. You're so right. And I think another thing is, recognize your triggers, right? People talk about this all the time in marriage counseling or, just personal counseling in general. So, okay, your trigger might just be your phone. I mean, that thing can do a million things to people, right? But if you know that you just, like me, fired off an ugly text message, it's probably going to ding back with something. Well, you probably need to turn it off, like the notifications off, or leave it in the control room or leave it somewhere else in your bag. Know that it's going to be there when you're done, but for the time being, when you walk into the OR, like Cindy said, you're filtering out all the bad, only the good is coming with you. That includes your phone. So filter that out as well. Leave your phone in the other room, turn it off, whatever you need to do. Be adult, and handle the situation the correct way. I love the Dora frame filter. I think that's perfect.
Well, I think that reminding yourself and having something physical is a good checkpoint. Like if you come to a stop sign, you automatically know you have to stop. So if you start looking at the door as
Yeah.
like a stop sign, and then you know where you're going. So we said at the very beginning, just to kind of summarize here, we are all human. We have all been guilty of this. Those that are high performers see the effect that it has. Some of you may not have realized that you even left a trail of destruction. You may be wondering, why am I not getting this business? Why haven't they called me back? Maybe take a minute, reflect a little bit about your last encounter. You may have done this subconsciously and not even realized. And that's one of the reasons, Lisa, that I wanted to kind of discuss this today is that it can be subtle at times, but it can be more evident that you actually think. And so I think a great way to kind of summarize is when you have resentment, contention, frustration, that has to be left behind. How do you do it? We gave you some quick tips. Take a breath, mental reset, stop at the door. The conflict you have, whether it's with a person, whether it's with an emotion, whether it's with a coworker, that has to be resolved later. And you have to set yourself into the fact that right now I'm going in and my job is to serve this surgeon and is to be there for the patient. And that's what it is. It's not about you at that time. It's about the patient. And you got to remind yourself that. It's hard, but it's so, so important. In fact, one last little thing that I thought was pretty interesting. When Lisa and I were discussing this, think about the human brain, you think about us being human, and I'm going to throw in just a little science-based fact because I thought this was interesting. So, research from Harvard talked about, we're talking about the emotion of contention, frustration, and whatnot. But research from Harvard shows that naming an emotion and like you can help regulate if you name an emotion. So I'm going to read this because we wrote this down. So before stepping into an OR, name what you're feeling. You can say, I'm frustrated, I'm anxious. If you put a name to how you're feeling, this is crazy. This is what we learned in the Harvard research. That acknowledgement alone can calm the amygdala and it gives you back control. Now, that to me is crazy, but the human body works in many different ways. So it begins with awareness and then working on making things better. Now, whether you believe that or not, I think it's great. You can try naming it if you want, recognizing it, be aware, go in, and you can make a true difference.
I love that. All right. So what's our call to action? I mean, we have given so much good stuff today away. I think it's really important that we leave you guys with a couple of marching orders other than just to be aware and keep your composure. This is a high stakes situation. You've got patients on the table. You have physicians you're working with. But what's our call to action?
Oh, okay. So I'll make a call to action. I was like ready for you to be like, let's do it. All right. So this is what I think. I think our call to action is for everybody to check in. Everybody check in with yourself. So I want you to think back. And I think an easy way to do this is it's memory time. Okay. Think back. We don't like to think about bad things, but think about a time that brought you tension. Or maybe you remember when you didn't feel really good or you felt tense in an OR. Okay. Maybe even unintentionally. Now, what would you do differently knowing what you know after today? Again, the secret to eliminating contention is composure.